Hello and welcome. I'm Austin Hill. Thanks for watching as IdahoReporter.com goes one-on-one with State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Luna. Mr. Superintendent, thanks very much for joining us, and thanks for having us here.
Glad to do it, Austin.
It's good to see you. Let's start for a moment with kind of a retrospect on a signature issue that you were known for, the Students Come First education reform agenda. Those were the laws that went on to be nicknamed the Luna laws.
Right.
Passed by the legislature, signed into law by Governor Otter in the spring of 2011. 18 months later or so, in November of 2012, voters repeal all of those laws with the defeat of Propositions 1, 2, and 3 in the election that year. Earlier this year, when you announced that you would not seek another term in office as the state superintendent, you were being interviewed at 670 KBOI Talk Radio here in Boise by host Nate Shellman. A question came up about Students Come First, and you pointed out, you said, I'm pleased that we did that. It instigated an important conversation about reform in our state. Tell us about that conversation.
Well, when I was visiting with Mr. Shellman on 670 radio, I was actually repeating what I'd said earlier in the day when I had actually announced I was not running for a third term. And I want to emphasize, I'm going to serve 2 full terms, and Idaho is full of many people that strongly believe in term limits. So I'm a politician that has chosen to term limit himself, and I think there's some good reason for that. But what I was talking to Nate about was Students Come First. Came at about a time when we were really in a malaise in education. There was the defense of the status quo was so strong, and a resistance to change even the fringe areas of education. And what Students Come First did is it created that disruptive change that needed to happen in education. And it caused that disruptive force that came from the outside into education. And the result was we weren't talking about education reform just at the legislature or just in the classroom. That conversation was happening and still happens today around dinner tables, around the water cooler. It happens in all areas of our lives because it took education and the need to improve it to the highest priority in all individuals in all walks of our lives. And I think because we went through that conversation, because we went through that disruptive change, we now have recommendations from a bipartisan group of education stakeholders that all agree on the path we're going to pursue when it comes to improving our schools. And much of those things that we've agreed on, you can find in those laws that were overturned. But we went through that process. It was a disruptive process. At times it was not pleasant to be involved in. But I think if we had not gone through that process, I don't think we would be where we are today. And I think we're in a far better place than we were.
Would you say that there are things today with education policy in Idaho that are normative that were not normative prior to the Students Come First proposals in 2011?
Sure. I think the fact that everyone agrees that we need to move to a pay-for-performance model of a career ladder to compensate teachers, that was a big component of Students Come First. It was Proposition 2, and the resistance to paying teachers at least a portion of their pay based on how students are performing academically, or having teacher evaluations at least partially tied to how students are performing academically. There was no buy-in of all stakeholders, and definitely not the teachers union buying into that form of evaluation and compensation. And now you see everybody agreeing to it. Even at the national level, you have the president of the NEA coming out and saying that the salary grid, the way that we've compensated teachers for decades, no longer works for teachers, and we need to move to alternative forms of compensation like career ladders. So that's one area. The other big change that has happened is educators' attitude towards technology. There was a fear when we were having this discussion about implementing technology in schools that technology was going to replace teachers, that somehow we thought that you could fire teachers, put students in front of a computer and educate them that way. Now everyone knows that wasn't the case. That was never the plan. And we see that the embracing of technology in the classroom has become organic, where now the biggest complaint I get as state superintendent is we're not going fast enough. We want more and more technology. We want every one of our students to have some form of a mobile computing device. That's what Prop 3 was all about. Right, but it took that conversation, it took that process in order to get us to where we are today, where it is normative, where everyone has bought in and agreed to this approach.